Hi and welcome to the panel talk, Who Gets to Plan and Live in the City? Hosted by GRAFIKENS HUS at this year's Science Week in Södertälje. Hopefully most of you just came from the lecture by Afaina de Jong, Creating a Sustainable City, Let People's Voices Be Heard. Sent live, so we had a good nerve there, but it went really, that was great to hear, Afaina. GRAFIKENS HUS and de Jong have been collaborating since 2018 together with Statens konstråd and the municipality of Södertälje, whom are represented in the panel today as well. My name is Nina Beckman and I am the director of GRAFIKENS HUS. Today we have prominent guests and our moderator that will be introduced very soon. But first some instructions, and I know you're also used now to the digital thing, but I'll say it anyway. So the talk ends at 12:15, so please stay tuned the whole talk if you can. We will record this panel talk and everyone needs to please mute their speakers. And if you have any technical problems, please tell us in the chat and we will try to help you. Anna Jönsson, my colleague, who I talked to just a minute ago, has arranged today's program and she will also do the technical support. And if there's time, the panel will answer questions, most likely after the talk, but write them in the chat and I gather them. So GRAFIKENS HUS is an art museum in Södertälje for contemporary printmaking in the expanded field. Our mission is to make art and the knowledge of printmaking accessible to as many people as possible. We continuously examine printmaking as an art form and explore its boundaries, often through artists in residencies and in close collaboration with artists and printers, because they have important skills of printmaking techniques and its history. That is, of course, very important for us to know. Our educational program is innovative, inclusive, and we want the audience to experience printmaking in new and different ways. We are driven by an ongoing curiosity and follow everything that happens within printmaking today, here in Sweden and not at least internationally. That has been really important since the start in 1996. Today, I am very proud to introduce our moderator, Namo Marouf, also known as the artist Lila Namo. A multi-talent with one foot in the artistic and cultural life. Through many years of performing and making music, I'm sure most of you know of Lila Namo. I listened a lot to you at least. Raising her voice in important questions like inequality in the society, who gets to be heard, what stories gets to be told and how. All of these questions led to that Namo Marouf wanted to work within urban development. With an exam from KTH, running her own podcast, Lilla Namo Stad, she is today project manager for urban development and social sustainability at Rambel. Most welcome, Namo, and we are now very eager to hear about the rest of the panel introduced by you.
Thank you very much, Nina, for the introduction. I'm humbled and I feel a bit embarrassed as well. I don't know why, I never stop. And I also would like to thank GRAFIKENS HUS for inviting me today to moderate this panel with such cool people. We have Jens Evaldsson. Jens is a maker and an artist who works with collaborative processes and dialogues. He uses this as a tool for, amongst other things, how we can coexist over intersectional boundaries. And Jens, when we spoke last week, you also told me you live on a tiny island in Stockholm. I'm very jealous of this, and I think this is a very good thing for creativity as well. And Jens will tell us more about what it means to be a maker. We also have Sofi, hi Sofi, she's an urban design strategist in the municipality of Södertälje. Sofi has a long experience in architecture, and you've had your own firm for a long time. And you've been engaged in youth sports organizations, and you're also a Södertälje OG, so you know a lot about the place inside and out. Then we have Brady Burroughs. Wave. Hi. Brady is a researcher and teacher at the architectural school at KTH. You put an academic twist to bingo and karaoke. You'll tell us more about this. In 2007, you started a group called Förtal in Swedish, and hopefully you'll tell us more about this. I think I'll leave the translation of the group to you in English, because I don't know the best translation. And you have a small town perspective, which is also very interesting when we spoke last week, since you were from Mackensville in the States. Yes. Did I pronounce that right, Mackensville?
Mechanicsville.
Mechanicsville, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I was thinking. And then we have Lena From. Lena is from the Sweden Public Art Agency, which is a governmental agency. And when we spoke, it was very interesting. You told me about when you first sort of met art, or maybe fell in love or questioned art when you were 14 at a train trip in Köln. And this was very interesting when you told me this, because it made me to think about how I fell in love with art, or if I've ever felt in love with public art. I still don't know. You've been a journalist up until 10 years ago, and we will also hear more about the projects that you work with at the art agency. And last but not least, we have Afaina de Jong. We're honored to have you in the panel as well. And for those who didn't listen to Afaina's talk about her project in Södertälje, I recommend you to do so afterwards. And Afaina is the founder of Afaina, which is an interdisciplinary architectural firm. And I will ask you later about the methods you use. So we will speak about that as well. Before we open up the panel, I was thinking about what all of you have in common after speaking to you and also listening to Afaina's talk. And I found that the common thing is the burning passion for incorporating, or rather implementing, intersectional practice in practice, intersectionality in practice. And this is a very difficult task, I would say, since the norm is not intersectional. The norm is very white. So what you are doing is not only important, but also crucial, so that more people can feel that they have access or keys to the city, to urban space. So I would like to open today's panel by asking you, Jens, how do you use this perspective in your daily work? Tell us a little bit more about being a maker and what it means.
Yeah, the intersectionality term is very wide and of course a bit complicated. But I'm a member of the Stockholm Makerspace organization, and I think that is a little bit of a role model of how we could be together as a community. And there is a kind of a melting pot of ideas. As you were talking about the interdisciplinarity of Afaina, I think it's very much interdisciplinary at the Makerspace organization. So different people from different cultures and different backgrounds and different knowledge start to work together and share together in a kind of a playful way. And I try to use that in my workshops and art also.
Mm. You focus more on other people than yourself, you told me, in your arts. Why is that? Why is it important to incorporate the human perspective?
I wish I focused more on other people than myself, but mostly I focus on the people and not so much on my own art objects. I think that's what I meant a little bit more. But I think it's good. You should actually pay a little bit more attention to other people. I heard that if you just pay like 60% attention on yourself and like 40% on somebody else, you become totally unique. Nobody does that. It's mostly like 80-90% you focus on yourself. What am I gonna eat? What am I gonna do next? How am I looking? in this context and so on. So if you start to focus on other people, then you get rewarded, I think, a lot. Or what was the question more?
Why it's important for you to have the other perspective than just your own perspective.
Yeah, maybe I answered that. But I know when I started the Royal Art Academy here in Stockholm, I was so interested in the place and the people, maybe more than my own practice or my own objects. So I started early on to think about the people in the group and thought I should focus more on them than creating my own art projects or objects. So then a conversation is a good start, because there you have the language. Different groups and different people have different languages. And if you start a dialogue or conversation, then you start to grind those concepts against each other. And you ask, what do you mean by that? Oh, I mean like this. And you start to get a common language.
Thank you, Jens. And working with people and perspectives, Sofi, you work at a municipality. It's not as free as being an artist, but you do work with citizen dialogues. Tell us a little bit more about the approach you have in Södertälje, and also Södertälje is a different municipality than a lot of other Stockholm municipalities. Tell us more about how you approach.
How we approach talking to our citizens is mainly to be actually where they are. It's the most important thing. And a good way is we've had several dialogues at the city festival, because the city festival is somewhere where everybody goes. All ages, all backgrounds, or all social backgrounds, and all languages. But what we found out was that we who stood in this stand, we were all middle-aged, mainly white people, which made it hard for like young people, teenagers to come. So the next year, we hired some teenagers to actually walk around with their iPads and ask the youngsters in the city where they were sitting or taking a fika or something. So that's a way for us to work. And also we worked with focus groups. We found that it's hard for girls to talk when a lot of boys are present. So we had a focus group with only girls. We had another focus group with real estate owners, and we had the focus group with elderly people. So we try to work with focus groups and also to get to people where they actually are. Also digitally, of course, which also gets other people to come to us, because you can't really just stand in one place and expect everyone to come to you. That would only be like the people that look like us and are like us that are standing in the stands.
Thank you. This is a very interesting way of working, also from a municipality point of view. And I believe that Södertälje is a role model in this sense, and that we should learn from Södertälje. I would like to ask you, Brady, you have a very unique way of working, which is not conventional either. You somehow rewrite reality in a humoristic, fictitious way. And I was thinking about this after we spoke, because you inspired me a lot in the way that you approach your task as a teacher. And sometimes people tell me that I'm brave, but I never feel brave. But when I listen to you speaking, I was like, where did she find the courage to approach architecture and being at a university in a playful way? Like what made you do this? And tell us about your method first.
I can say I feel the same way as you. A lot of people bring up the idea of being brave or having courage, but I don't. I think I work in a very privileged context with very privileged people. What's the worst that can happen? You know, it's a little awkward maybe, or I get rejections somewhere, but I know I don't. It's not going to kill me. So I would say that it's not so much for me. It's not so much courage, but more inspiration. And the methods that I have worked with in the past in teaching are to question seriousness as a form of power. Those who determine what is serious and who is serious have the power to determine what is valued, and behind what is valued lies a lot of norms. So by working with unserious methods, we try to, you don't ever take away the power, but try to give the power to other people and bring in other voices. So as you mentioned before, I've had do this in courses where we've had architectural karaoke, you know, to say an architectural message by singing cheesy songs from the 80s, but changing the text. We've had usually critique is a way that you learn in architecture and design schools. And we've done, instead of written critiques of a built work, I've asked the students to write critical love letters. And so the critique is still there, but it's said in a different way. And by formulating it in a different way, you find new ideas. Or dance your studio project. You know, we've had a choreographer come in. So it's been about also looking at new sources, who's part of the conversation. Not only the standard academic, you know, you don't have to always cite Foucault. You can also look at other contexts, and those change the way you think about what you do.
Yeah. Thank you. Lena, how do you think that this unseriousness could be incorporated in, because you work at a governmental agency with arts? Who is part of the conversation there? What's the role of Statens konstråd, or the Swedish Agency of Art?
Well, the Sweden Public Art Agency was founded in 1937 as a means of making art available to everyone, quotation. And that was in a period in Sweden when the so-called People's Home, folkhemmet, was constructed, and various issues of urgent needs within democracy were addressed, such as public schools available to everyone, good housing, residential areas available to everyone, public libraries available to everyone, and paired with the situation where artists in Sweden were in lack of jobs and lack of possibilities of providing a living for themselves, paired with the need of making art available to everyone, not only those born into the privilege of getting to know arts. Statens konstråd was founded. So that's still our goal, in a way, to make art available to people that are not born with direct access to the world of arts in various expressions. So that's the main goal. Addressing you, Brady, I think unseriousness is serious, and it is a very serious issue, and to try to bringing this into each and every project, because without the playfulness that you're addressing, Jens, and the unseriousness, you don't get to the point, you don't find which is the really important question to address in a specific situation. So it's a very important way of bringing it. It's important to bring those perspectives into each and every conversation when it's got to do with art. Pardon my lousy English.
It's not lousy. Thank you very much. You were done, Lena, right? I didn't interrupt you. You muted your microphone, that's why.
No, you posed 3 questions, and I think I answered 2 of them, and I forgot the 3rd. So
okay, we'll get back to that. So connecting to who is part of the conversation, I'm very curious about, Afaina, I read in an article, I'm quoting, that you are influenced by graphic design and street codes, such as graffiti and hip hop culture. And of course, this caught my attention since somehow I'm part of hip hop culture. So I'm curious because I know that Amsterdam is a city where hip hop is big, but are those people part of the conversation in architecture and urban space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think for me, growing up in Amsterdam, kind of in the 80s and the 90s, you know, hip hop was not part of the conversation in architecture, but at the same time they were, you know, because I think graffiti was happening and hip hop parties were also happening in warehouses, garages, like it was happening everywhere. And I think that really drew me to architecture in a way, because I was also part of that underground movement, even though I always wanted to be a rapper, but I was just, I had no talent. But anyway, so, I mean, I really got into this idea of the city by going through all like these spaces that you would never know about, you know, and kind of trying to decipher what graffiti was part of what crew and where that crew was from and why was it there. And, you know, like it really developed in me the wish to kind of understand the city as a place or a system in which we all live together. So, and I think now of course, things are changing in a way, you know, there are architects who are trying to incorporate the ideas of and values of hip hop into the design field, you know, and for me, that has also kind of been the case in the sense like to make something out of nothing, you know, to make culture out of, I don't know, air and ideas. And I really think personally tried to translate that energy, but also what I saw and what I still see into something that is architectural space, because I think it's important information, it's important knowledge, you know, and yeah. I hope, is that an answer?
Yeah, it was. I do believe that we need more street smart also in our practices. And if I would open up a question to the panel, whoever wants to answer, how can we, because you work with practices, you try to be a voice for other groups, for a bigger group than just the norm, but where does the boundary go from when we appreciate something and put it in urban space and when we appropriate something and put it in urban space? Like where is the fine line of doing so? Did you understand my question, or should I rephrase?
Is this to all, or is it to?
Yeah, I'm thinking to everyone. I'm sort of looking for like where does the boundary go from where I as an urban planner, I cannot be the voice for everyone. Where is the boundary of appropriating someone else's culture into urban space, maybe through art or through dialogues or through, and where's it's a very difficult question, and I don't know where the line goes either.
Yeah, it's a hard one, but I think for me, I you know, like I'm also at risk to appropriate maybe, but I mean, fortunately, up until now, I've been able to kind of design things that I also kind of know or was personally connected to in a way. But I do think it's really about and this is where I think the intersectional framework helps, because you have a framework in which you can position yourself. Where do I stand in relation to the people I'm designing for in a way? But also it gives you a chance to kind of position the people you're designing for, you know? So I think it helps you to kind of understand these relations better. And then also to be able to dissect your intention in a way, you know, like how do I go about it? This old kind of way of paternalistic designing from on top is then not possible in a way. So I think maybe for me, it's a helpful framework or a very important framework to avoid this. Yeah.
Thank you. Sophie, did you want to say something?
Yeah. Yes. I think it's not either or. It's fluent, this difference, and I would like to talk about an example that we did in Södertälje, where we had a wall being put up just for constructing, actually. And at the same time, there was a conversation going on. We want to have somewhere to put our graffiti. So we put into the agreement with the building firm that they would let this wall for graffiti. And we hired an artist that in turn took in 5 other artists to make this great painting. And it's still there, or at least parts of it. And that was a way to kind of get out there and put into others' hands what's going to be created, and also to be secure that this will be something good. And since it wasn't something permanent, we could always take it away if it didn't work.
Thank you. I think, Lena, you unmuted your microphone as well. Did you?
Well, I wanted to agree with Afaina, and talking from an institutional perspective, this means not who you are mainly as a person, it means who are you as an institution. And in that sense, it's really crucial to try and be observative of what perspectives are we lacking within our institution, and how can we make up for that, or try and make up for that in our projects. What are our blind spots and how do we go about them? And it's not easy, but it's important to try and become aware. And one way of becoming aware is inviting different perspectives in many different ways, because they're not all evident in the same way in each and every project when you're working with a wide range of different kinds of projects as we are. And I agree with you, Namo. We've got a lot to learn from the way Södertälje is working when it comes to bringing in different kinds of perspectives. And I recognize a lot of what you described, Sophie, when you're describing your processes. That's similar to what we try and achieve within our public art agency.
Jens, tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about the idea of portraying different bodies in architectural visualizations. What effects do you think that those bodies have on our consciousness? Why is it important to change?
Yeah, I've been collaborating with Afaina with doing this scan workshop last year at Södertälje Science Week also. We tried to 3D scan the audience, and also especially invite the organizations that Afaina and GRAFIKENS HUS invited to be 3D scanned. And I think it's a Afaina's idea originally, but you had the idea that it's very homogeneous. I mean, it's very much the same kind of people who are represented as scale figures in architecture. You know, this kind of perfect world where there is no trouble and no dangers, and everybody is relaxing. And I like scale figures. I like architecture visualizations also, but I think they could have a little bit more depth, a little bit deeper analysis. And I think Afaina also thinks that. So we tried to create this. It could be a database in the end, which is downloadable from GRAFIKENS HUS website. And if we apply for some money and get the 3D scanner, then we could start to build up this library of differentiated pluralistic bodies. I would say also that I think that it's starting to get better with those scale figures. I think almost all of the libraries now have some kind of awareness of this. But I would say it's on a kind of a Hollywood level right now. You try to get one of each ethnicity maybe, and then mostly white people, and then mostly. So it's I think if we go more into the intersectional depth and also HBTQI ideas, we would get further. Our database would be unique, I think.
Yeah, it's a very important project, and we do have a long way to go. And working with inclusive practices somehow, Brady, tell us about the project you did with your students with the Sarah Ahmed texts, making it more available.
Yeah, it's there's a serious academic publisher called Routledge who produces a series called Thinkers for Architects. And these are books to introduce theory and philosophical ideas to architects and students. But there are 17 of them, and one of these thinkers of 17 is female. So I decided together with my students to create a new series called Feminist Thinkers for Architects. And we produced this, which is around Sarah Ahmed's work. We produced a fanzine that was open access, downloadable, so it's open to everyone. And we made it directly related to the architecture student situation, so brought all of these ideas into something that's more accessible for people. And now I'm hoping to make it into a series and talking to some people in the panel here to hopefully do their own fanzine and add to the series. Afaina. So that's a project that I'm excited about.
Thank you.
Maybe Namo, I can come in shortly.
Yes.
I'm thinking also, I guess we also have to talk about and discuss who we are working at all these institutions. Because I mean, I think a lot of us do great projects and we want to see a progress and we want to see everyone sort of included, all voices, but I guess also we have to look at ourselves. I mean, who are working in our institutions, who are working at GRAFIKENS HUS, who are in the board. I mean, to be able to have an impact, I guess, for real. You and I talked about that a bit before this conversation or the panel. I mean, to be able to mirror the people of a city, like, for example, Södertälje, I guess you need to find the people in all places, in the municipality, at GRAFIKENS HUS, I mean, represented, all different voices, all different backgrounds. And I guess, I mean, definitely for us and a lot of us, there's a lot of work to do. And hopefully I mean, I think we do see progress, but I still think there's a lot to do there.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Nina. We did speak about that. And I mean, we talk about tokenism a lot within urban planning and architecture, but we never speak about the tokenism in the workforce. We only speak about it within dialogues usually. And we need to broaden that, expand that. I believe, like, I have felt that a lot of times, and I guess Afaina, you have felt it a lot of times, like, are they inviting me because I'm good at what I'm doing, or is it because I'm not white? Like, that happens a lot. And we did have that conversation, and it's important to talk about it as well. And with that, our time is over for the panel. I'd like to thank everyone for your answers. I hope we can continue this conversation somewhere. I don't know where, but I would like to end with some words saying, like, nothing is forever, not even the stories we tell about the past. And the stories we learn in history books and how people are portrayed in history and in the present is always an indication of the status quo. But why representation and intersectionality is so important now is because we tell the story about the future. That's why we have to set the stage now and not continue the same story. So with that, I just want to say thank you very much for this panel and GRAFIKENS HUS for having this discussion, because it's very important.
Thank you, Namo, very much. And I mean, it's been great to listen to all of you. And for those who want to join this afternoon, Jens Evaldsson will also do 2 workshops where you can actually collectively make a sculpture, a digital sculpture, that we will play somewhere in Södertälje as well. So join us there if you like. And thanks so much for attending. Bye-bye, everyone.